right. Well, no one else is coming on right now. We still may get some more, but I want to honor your time since you all were on at the right time. But we'll welcome you. Today is our Stone Soup conversation, in which we just share ideas with one another. And Lorna, if you would like to introduce this, I would be grateful.
Well, how this came about was the leadership team was talking at the end of the year about what was coming next year. And I had just taken 2 courses through W. Beck's, and they gave exactly opposite advice. And I started thinking about coaching and some of the things that we've learned that are gospel. And then we start practicing coaching and we discover, maybe they aren't quite as set in stone as we thought. And we also then, as we talked about that, began to think, we all have some favorite things that we might use that didn't even come from our coach training, but we found very useful. And so we decided we'd like to have a meeting that would be the opportunity for us to share our wisdom, be it a tool we use. It could even be questions we have that inform our coaching, a tool, a book, whatever it is that you think would be helpful. And we're hoping that not only will we have the chance to present that, but we'll have a little bit of chance to have some discussion and question and answer, and that it will be a growth thing for all of us. And if this works well, we might make it an annual thing. And if it doesn't, we won't. We'll consider it an experiment to see how it goes. So I'd invite somebody who's brought something to just leap in and start. We have right now 11 people in an hour. So that gives you an idea how much time we can take per person. And I'm assuming there'll be some dialogue after each one. So don't use all your time talking at us. Who wants to jump in and start?
I will start.
Who is that?
It was Sarah.
Oh, hi,
So
Sarah.
I'm
Thanks.
fairly new to this group. I'm Sarah Mornooks, and I live in Wisconsin. And I very recently was the General Presbyter in Winnebago Presbytery. I'm still a minister member there. I brought 2 books that I have found to be really helpful in this particular moment in time. The first one is My Grandmother's Hands. Some of you may be familiar with this because it's making the rounds. I have found it to be particularly helpful in the coaching that I've been doing, which is just a little bit right now, because of the collective trauma that we're all living through, right? And this book has some very specific and concrete ways to start to deal with trauma. Not that any of us who aren't trained should be diagnosing or treating specifically trauma, but just in the conversations around trauma and recognizing trauma and using tools to help people lower anxiety, grab themselves, be mindful, intentional, those kinds of things. If you haven't read the book, it's designed to address 3 audiences. One audience is white people, one audience is people of color, and a third audience is specifically people who are in law enforcement. So if you're dealing with any of those populations, so probably we're dealing with some of them, this is a great resource, particularly because the end of every chapter has literally like, here's an exercise you can do. Coupled with that, I also brought this book, which is called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. Full disclosure, I have not read the whole thing yet. It is by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. They are sisters, and if you are on Brene Brown's podcast cycle, you will heard that interviewed. That is most useful about this is coupled with trauma. It is about the physiological stress cycles that we all experience, and again, very concrete, specific ways to complete the stress cycle from a physical perspective that can help with the emotional parts of our life that can be really freaking stressful right now. So those are the two things that I brought to share.
Would you give that title again, please, Sarah?
Yes, in fact, what I will pop them both in the chat, but titles and authors.
Great, thanks. Do you want to call on somebody?
Jeff.
Thanks, Sarah. I did hear that podcast. That was a great podcast. So I'm glad you brought that book back up because I forgot about it. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeff Eddings. I work with 1,001 new worshiping communities of the Presbyterian Church. And I am the coaching associate. So I oversee our coaching network. We have close to 100 coaches that we work with, that I connect with new worshiping community leaders all across the country. A couple of them are on this call right now, Jason and Nydia. Mary Ann graciously came and spoke back when we could do those things. It's crazy to think that was, in fact, Mary Ann, that was the last time I was out in the world. It was when we were in San Diego. So glad to be here. And I've been moving our coaching network into more of a certification process. So Lori Ferguson and Chip Lowe have been working with us to get our coaches certified, and it's been awesome. So been connecting more of us into this space. So really glad to be here. What I brought is something called Neil's Wheel. It's this guy, Neil Scotton, who is from England. And I encountered it at a coaching conference put on by Invite Change back in the fall. And if it's okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Am I able to share my screen? Could the host or I can just hold it up here, but it'd be great if I could share. But Neil's Wheel, thank you, is, oh, where'd it go? All right, I'm gonna pull it up here. Neil's Wheel is kind of it's a coaching wheel. And I found it to be very simple but kind of very powerful. And I'll drop the link to his website in the chat, which is simply neilswheel.org. But here it is. It's just wheel divided into eight parts. And on the one side, he has these dotted lines. And so this side over here, financial, human, environmental, is kind of meant to help us think outward, like what's going on in the world environmentally or around humanity or financially. I mean, we also still are thinking about those things personally, but that's just what those dotted lines are. It's a little bit of our outward maybe focus. And then the other parts of the wheel are legacy, values, calling, meaning, and purpose, whole life fulfillment, enabling greatness in others, and then a blank part of the wheel, which I love, a part of the wheel that you can fill in as you think is appropriate. And Neil says it's meant to be very flexible. It's meant to be like something you can just put before somebody, and say, hey, take 10 minutes with this or 15 minutes with this. He has a whole list of questions you can engage around on his website. And I've used it a little bit, and I've personally engaged in it. And I find it to be a helpful way to really get into some deep conversations rather quickly with your coachees. Or if you're kind of in a place where you're in the relationship with them, or you're a little bit stuck on what do we want to focus on next, this could be a nice thing just to offer to them and say, sit with this for a bit and then bring it back, and let's see how, what piece of the wheel speaks to you, how the wheel, maybe the different slices connect. What did you put in your blank space? I've just found it to be a great way to interact. And I've sat with it kind of 3 times personally and kind of come up with different things each time. It's spoken to me a little bit differently. So that's what I have to offer. And I'll drop it into the chat.
Thanks, Jeff. You want to call in somebody?
Can I ask you a question, Jeff, before we move on?
Yeah.
So what is the question that you're asking them when with the wheel? Is it how fulfilled are you feeling in these different areas?
It could be like on the website. He has a list of different questions you can use to engage in.
Okay.
But the first time that I participated, it was simply like, here it is. Just allow yourself to respond to the different areas and see what comes up. Or you can ask more specific questions. But there's a whole list of questions on how to engage on the website. And he has a little video. And Neil is a delightful guy. Yeah. So I will call on Steve Shive because I'd love to hear how Steve's doing. You're muted, Steve.
I'm here on a wing and a prayer right now. So honestly, I didn't bring anything, but as Jeff and Sarah were talking, the greatest gift that I have found in ministry and in coaching is the gift of presence, and being truly present to myself, to God's presence within me, and then the capacity to be present to others. Just in the anxiety that our culture's in, to be able to really hear, listen, and ask the questions as a coach, to people come to their own wisdom in the midst of this. And so the gift of presence. And I don't have a great resource to share with you except mindfulness or centering prayer has got me through a transition from Wyoming to Texas and moving from a presbytery of 28 churches to a presbytery of 137 churches, and trying to wrap my head around all that. So that gift of presence has been a real gift to me, and I commend it to you.
So I have a question for you, Steve. Whatever possessed you to go from 28 churches to 137?
I don't know. That's a great question. As the personnel committee from Grace called me, one of my core values is being on an adventure, and I'd been in Wyoming for 10 years, and somehow it resonated in my spirit that this was a good adventure to take, and what they needed and what I have to offer the world congealed, and that's part of it. So I don't easily say it, but just God, just who, it just sensed the call.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I call on Jason Whitehead.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm not quite sure, other than size, the difference between Wyoming and Texas, as I live in Colorado in between the two of you, and we're the only sane state on this side of the Mississippi, it seems, most days. So I think you are both in pot and kettle territory and frying pan and fire territory sometimes. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. And this was a program that I found that was commended to me by another coach. And I think they're still running grant-funded cohorts at this moment, and it's about a 6 to 8 week program of positive intelligence by Shahrzad, Sharmeen, who is the former CEO of Coactive Coaching and other spaces. But this has been a really kind of fascinating program for me, just as what Steve was talking about, in kind of thinking about what presence is to me, and thinking not only about what it is, but how to be present in a particular moment, especially as, you know, anxieties or other kinds of things pop in and out of spaces when you interact with folks around their own. And so I know I completed this program, I believe in late November or early November last year, and a couple other coaches from the cohort with Laurie and Chip are doing it now. But what I've found, and the way that it's framed is around the operating system that we use to interpret the world. And how do you calm the operating system down so that you can actually respond rather than just react to the world around you? And it's been, you know, what I've found is that it's been really helpful with clients, just little bits and pieces of it as I integrate it into my practice, especially around grounding in the body, and grounding and kind of syncing up, you know, heart, mind, and body in really meaningful ways. So, you know, I often say, you know, if you see me doing this, it's because something is anxious for me. And that's one of the reps that I learn along the way, is to be constantly kind of in touch with touch. And, you know, I'm speaking in public, so I'm a little nervous. So, you know, my hands just kind of automatically start doing this. And this was one of the things that I hadn't ever thought about. And it comes out, you know, I think, Sarah, what you were talking about with Reshma Menakem's book, a lot of that early trauma work is really centering people on the present and using their senses to center them on the present. And there's a real kind of overlap in how they're teaching it in this particular program. And I've enjoyed and continued to use it. And one of the great things is that they have an app that's on your phone and will kind of give you some reps and other things to do each day. So if they're still doing the grant-funded cohort, you know, it's a great way to kind of meet other coaches, but also ground yourself in your own practice and presence as you move in and out of spaces. So that's what I've got. Now,
Before you call on somebody, does anybody have questions about that? My question would be, since you're talking about cohorts, how many people does it take for a cohort? And if people here were interested, maybe we'd need to drop that into the chat so that possibly there could be a cohort formed from this group.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how many total they take. I'm guessing probably anywhere between 200 and 250. But you're divided into pods that you create of kind of 3 to 6 people. And those pods go on the journey together and do the learning together. And you're required to meet at least once a week and post on the app together to check in with one another. I believe Libby and Taylor are doing this now, Jeff. I think they're in a pod together, but, you know, I would recommend that if you do want to kind of put yourself in this, to find some other people. My pod was okay most days. I had a UCC minister in there and 2 education folks and somebody from the Springs who does nutrition coaching. So it's kind of interesting to see some of the diversity of what people brought. But I think having a committed pod is really important in that space, or at least, you know, if I'm reflecting back on what I wish I'd had a little more of in that space and time. And so I know they're running, I think they just started a cohort at the end of January, and they usually run about 6 to 8 weeks. So it may not be till March before they open things up again if the grant's still there.
Thanks.
Yep. And I'd love to know what Robin's bringing along with her today.
Oh, Robin needed to read the email a little better. Got nothing. But happy to be with you and to learn and pick up different resources. I do want to say I don't think I've seen Nidia since 1998, but I think you knew me as Robin Miller, and I just want to shout out and say hi. But I'm assuming you have no questions for that, so I'm gonna call on Marianne.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here. And if you see me kind of looking off to the sides, because I'm adding to my story graph, which is where I store books and following all these links. I think I will share, let's see, I'll share three things. One is a book, one is a TV show, and one is something that I put together. And Sarah mentioned Storygraph. I've just started working with them. I used to have all my stuff in Goodreads, and a friend of mine recommended Storygraph as an alternate place to keep track of what you're reading and what you have read and all of that. And it's nice to, as much as Amazon is a part of our lives in so many ways, it's nice to get off of Goodreads because it's an Amazon kind of company. So anyway, the book that I want to recommend is came out last year, but it's one that I continue to go back to again and again, and it's by Valerie Kaur, the activist and civil rights lawyer and filmmaker. Kaur is Kaur, and the book is called See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. And I put the page in there. It's her story as an activist and as a kind of a civil rights leader, but it is just full of wisdom. And I highly recommend the audiobook because she sings. She's a Sikh person, and so she sings and chants prayers, and it's just a beautiful thing to listen to. But full of great insight into how to be in this work for the long haul, whether, whatever your work is, but making the world a better place, which we hope that the people that we coach and we ourselves are about, regardless of our religious sensibility. But two things that really struck me. One was she has a whole chapter on rage and the importance and how rage connects with love. And we sometimes think, oh, anger is something to be discounted and sort of we're supposed to, love means we don't have that kind of, we need to suppress that feeling. And I just love that she takes on the idea of rage as a part of love. And she goes into various things on that. But the other piece that I have really reflected on a lot with clients is a refrain throughout the book. She says, the way we make change is as important as the change we make. And focusing on the how, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we being gentle in our communities? So, and she uses that as a way to keep herself accountable to take vacation. And, she at one point postpones her honeymoon. I think it was after the shooting of the Sikh temple up in Wisconsin, I believe. She postpones that, but then realizes that is important for her self-care to get away. So anyway, that book. The TV show that I want to recommend, this is a little off the wall, but and my family's so tired of me talking about this show, but if you have Apple TV Plus, the comedy Ted Lasso, which came out in August, Sarah gives that a thumbs up. In addition to being very funny and just kind of light in some ways, I mean, it's not for all ages, it's definitely adult content, but it is the most emotionally intelligent group of characters that I have encountered on a sitcom, maybe ever. And it's just deeply satisfying. And I think there's a lot of great, just, I don't use it in coaching, but I think as a coach, I have appreciated it because, Ted Lasso is a coach, although a different kind than what we do. But I just recommend it because it's fun and and a very fun watch. But I got a lot out of it, kind of on a interpersonal level. The last thing I want to share is, and Jeff kind of prompted this. I'm going to the link because I lost the link that I copied. But I may have shared this already with the group, but last year I did these weekly gatherings that were public gatherings called Care and Comfort in Stressful Times. And it was just kind of a half hour, 30-minute, 35-minute mindfulness practice and some reflections from me, and then some kind of tool to help people just kind of manage, practice self-care, discernment, mindfulness, that kind of thing. And I put together a bunch of worksheets. And so the Neil's wheel reminded me that I put together a wheel of life, but not specifically for COVID, but with different categories on them, kind of like Neil did with his. And so I'm going to put the link into how to subscribe to get access to those. There's about 8 or 9, and one of them is about how to incorporate play into your life. One is, I can't even remember what they are because it was last year and none of us can keep anything in our heads that long anymore, but several things there. And I think they might be good to use with clients, but also just for your own personal use. So I'll put all that in the chat. But those are what I have to offer. And I hope that you find them helpful. So I think Sarah was sharing when I came in, and I don't know if someone went before her, but Nydia, have you, or can I invite you to be next?
Thank you, Marianne. Nydia Fernandez, and I am happy to see Robin. I was trying to figure out if that was her. I haven't seen her since we graduated from school, from Princeton. And it was so good to see you. I was excited. And when I was looking at Robin, actually, I don't know if you remember Robin, when we went to Princeton downtown, we had a cartoon. Somebody made a cartoon of us. Somebody drew a cartoon. That was so funny. And I still have that picture. So, but anyhow, what I want to share with you is something that I used myself, and it's called soul collage. I did my own soul collage. It's here when I lost my father. And it was, I didn't know that I was going to pick all those pictures. I don't know if you're able to see it, but soul collage started like in the 80s. And when you have questions in your life journey, that's when you find soul collage. It's a self-discovery. I use it with teenagers because they love art. And it's amazing. I basically use it with all kind of ages of people, but the ones that really like it is the young people, because soul collage is made out of pictures from magazines. I have tons of pictures, and then what I do is I put them on the floor now that that we are not meeting. What I did recently is I sent in the mail the card and a bunch of pictures with glue and everything. And then the kids were showing me the pictures on Zoom when we were meeting. The purpose of this soft collage is that when they're dealing with an aspect in the life, when they have questions in the life, when they want to discover themselves, I use it for people who are dealing with anxiety, who are dealing with something that they don't know how to figure out what's going on with them. So what they do is they pick a picture. I told them focus on one area, only one area of the life that they want to focus. And then after that, they go around and then pick pictures that they are drawn to. And they pick pictures and pictures. And then after that, they form the collage, cutting. And you need just a pair of scissors, a glue, and a nice card box. And actually, these pictures, you can tell, I have like 5 of them. They can tell the story. After you finish the picture, there are 4 questions that you ask the picture. So you enter into a dialogue with the picture, and one of the questions is, you start with, I am one who is waiting for hope. No, that could be one of the questions. The other question is you ask the card, you collage, what message do you have for me? So the picture to you. And it's amazing because I just did it with one of the young ladies, and that she's dealing with anxiety and self-esteem. And the one that she responded on one of her questions is, it helped me to see myself different. She saw a different thing. She saw Nydia. You know, one of the pictures that she showed me in her collage is a lady that is looking through the horizon like that. And I said, what does that mean? She said, this picture, this collage helped me to see that there are light outside this tunnel, this dark tunnel that I see myself. So it's amazing. It's very good. The kids love that, and also the adults. You know, there are 4 questions, and you start the dialogue. And then after that, if they want to continue with more questions, they can do another one with another aspect of the life. So it's amazing. I use it all the time. I used to, it was very useful when I was doing therapy. In psychotherapy, it's used a lot, but now it has a different approach because this is more self-discovery. It's in the journey of discovering themselves. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Will you put the questions in the chat for us, Nydia?
Sure, I will.
And do you want to call on someone?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let me say something.
Sure.
Peggy, we forgot to do a word, and this certainly counts as resource credit. So let's do a starting word now, because we have everybody here who is here, and we'll do one at the end, and you can apply for credit for this. You want to do a word to start?
Or we could just give credit to everyone who is participating in this conversation.
We could do it. We could, but Janice isn't here, so she'll expect 2 words.
Oh, okay. Sure. Beginning word is conversation.
Great. And Nydia, do you want to call on someone?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm going to call on Michael. Doggy, did he talk? Is that how you say your name? I'm Mitchell, I'm sorry. Mitchell.
I thought you might be trying to
He's trying to
call on
read.
me. Thanks. Greetings all. The resource I am mentioning is not new by any stretch of the imagination, but one that I use regularly in my coaching. I primarily have coached first call ministers. Over the last 3-4 years, I've coached an abundance of mid-council individuals, persons in mid-council roles. And I'm also certified to coach congregations, and have certainly done an abundance of that. And this book was written in 1999. It's Gil Rendell's book, Behavioral Covenants in Congregations. And we're so delighted that there is no conflict in churches or in systems, because, you know, it's not something that we have to deal with. But our coaching clients continue to talk about conflict, or continue to talk about how the values of an organization, or particularly the beliefs of an organization, differ from the way an organization acts. Go figure. So what has helped me dramatically in helping coach individuals who lead systems or who are involved in systems is to take a look at creating behavioral covenants, which begin to help organizations become aware of the dichotomy of what they believe as opposed to how they act. And once that dichotomy is they become more aware of that dichotomy. The formation of behavioral covenants is both life-giving and a way forward for those institutions and organizations as they actually form covenants, and to say, this is how we choose to behave differently than the way we've behaved in the past. It creates systems of accountability for within that organization, so that they're able then to be accountable, and it guides them to methodologies for how they can be accountable for that different behavior. And example, the church that I currently serve as a transitional minister in Victoria, British Columbia, has for a long time engaged in very conflicted kind of relating in and among session. And so to be able to create covenants for new behavior, which calls them regularly back to that behavior and say, you know, I notice we aren't acting in the way that we have prescribed for ourselves. What do we want to do about that? It actually is a tool which gives tremendous guidance for that organization, for that session, or in the case of a mid-council person, other persons within the organization on council, mid-council staffs. It can be used for a whole host of different organizational structures. So this was an Alban book in 1999, and we were able to recently order it still. So I will put this in the chat for you to find it. Questions? Comments, or if you have lived and died by this book, speak up or forever hold your peace. All right, thank you.
Didn't call on somebody, Mitch?
How about Peggy Hines?
I knew you were going to call on me, Mitch. Yeah, I don't, I really don't have anything new to share. Most of the reading and stuff I'm doing right now is not really coaching related. Since I have been thrown back into the world of parish ministry, that's been sort of where my mind has been a lot lately, although I am, of course, still coaching. But thinking about one of the tools that I have used since I started coaching, and I coach primarily pastors and congregations. Like Mitch, I'm a certified congregational coach. But I have found that, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. Values assessment, thank you. It went away, but now it's back. You doing value assessments with folks has been very helpful, and I have done it both with individuals and with sessions in congregations. There are a lot of values assessment tools out there. I kind of adapted and created my own for congregations, and then one for individuals. But you can get the cards. You can order the cards. And or you can create your own list. But I have found that really helps people start thinking about what is essential, what are the values that underlie the decisions they make, the way they function, and that sort of thing. And sometimes I find that, well, people find when they do the values assessment that the way they're functioning, the way they're acting doesn't align with their values. And so it helps them to clarify and then to make some changes depending on what their stated values are. And I also found that a lot of people just can't articulate their values at all. They don't know how to articulate those, how to pinpoint them. And so the assessment helps them to do that. Like I said, there's lots of places you can get them, but there's a website called Coaching. I think it's called Coaching Toys Inc. That has this kind of thing, but also has lots of other things that you can use in coaching. But other than that, the other thing I wanted to lift up is the network, for one, that we're in right now, but also the small group that I'm a part of, which Lorna and Mitch are also a part of. I have found that to be an invaluable resource. And we did a little workshop on it for PCN a while back. But having a group like that, a small group, there's 4 of us that meet together on a regular basis, has been invaluable to me in my coaching. It kind of keeps me on my toes, for one thing. It keeps me learning, gives me some accountability, but also some support. And so if you're not in a small group, and I know some of you are, or we're in cohorts or in groups, from your training, but if you're not in a small group of peers that you can meet with on a regular basis, I highly recommend that to you. And I'm going to call on Seth.
Peggy, I have a question.
Oh, okay.
How do you help your audience or your clients to differentiate between values and priorities? Because often, they get confused. When I ask them about their values, they come with a set of priorities. How can you help them?
Good question. And people do get confused about that. I agree. One thing that the value assessment does is the wording that used on the values assessment can help with some of that. But also I talk with them about the difference between what is underlying, which I call the foundation. Those are your values, and priorities have to do with action plans, and what are the things that we need to accomplish or want to accomplish, but they're not the essentials. They are not the grounding of who we are. Values have to do with identity. Does that make sense? Seth, are you with us?
I am, and my video's not on because I'm not sure my internet connection, but my daughter drew that photo and that's better than what I look like. So imagine me like that. So this is my first time here. So if you don't know who I am, that's probably why. But a resource that I would offer.
Well, Seth, tell us who you are
sure.
before the resource.
Sure. So I'm Seth. I am a pastor in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which I say is in the northwestern corner of Virginia, but no one from Virginia speaks like that. I'm in my home state of Washington visiting family at the moment. But yeah, so I pastor and I coach on a volunteer basis track at a little Division III college near me. And so those are the things that I do. And have a wife and 3 children. And so my resource, and I haven't actually got all the way through it, but it's a book. It's called How to Decide by Annie Duke. And I think it's very accessible, and it's basically right along the lines of the title, How to Decide. And it really walks you through just the components of making quality decisions. And so even though I'm not done with the book, I've already implemented some of that with some people that I'm coaching that need to make decisions. And for me, it's just a good breakdown of, what goes into it is a good decision process, right? Not necessarily the outcome, but the process of making a decision. What goes, how does that journey go? And so I find it very productive, and and it has lots of checklists and things along the way. And so it's also a resource that, you know, if I don't have something in my head, I can pop it open on my iPad or whatever and look real quick, and it's very accessible like that too. So helping people make decisions, not that deeper discovery piece, but just, you know, a lot of times we get presented with, I need to decide what to do about this. And I find that's a good place to help get them going before we go deeper.
So, Seth, who was the writer?
Annie Duke. And I'm on my phone, but I will try to tap it into the chat.
Thanks, Seth. You want to call in someone?
I'm afraid I was a bit late because my flight got changed, but
How about
I'm
David?
not sure. That's what I was going to narrow it down to. David, how about you?
Thank you, Seth. Like you, Seth, I'm new or relatively new. I think this is my second time meeting with you all. Not the last time you met, but the time before that. I am a coach and consultant and pastor in Dunedin, Florida, which is just north of Clearwater in the Tampa Bay area. Yeah, just finished up my coaching training and mentor coaching with the Coaching Institute, Laurie's group out of Columbia. So it's great. I haven't been certified yet, but working on that, and it's great to be with you all. I will say that I am in this moment a little bit transported back to school in that feeling of not having done your homework and being called on. Not all of you may have had that experience. I had it frequently. I'm having it again. But I will offer one thing that, and my apologies if it's slightly self-serving, because I do serve on their board, and it's not really so much a coaching resource, but it may be a resource for all of you. I do serve on the board of the Center for Emotional Intelligence. We do emotional intelligence training for church leaders. Most of them are ordained clergy, although not all are. We've ended up working largely with Episcopalians and Lutherans and some Catholics. Presbyterians, not so much, although some who certainly have been a part of our training. And we, of course, like everybody else who does such work, have had a tremendous revolution in the past year, because really all of our work, and I'm assuming that everybody's at least somewhat familiar with emotional intelligence and the role that it plays in leadership, and certainly religious leadership. And I can bore you with studies that talk specifically about clergy effectiveness and emotional intelligence. But we've pushed everything online, as most other folks have, even though really a lot of our training is highly experiential learning. We have managed to find ways to do that online. So we offer a monthly webinar. We do a small 4-week kind of introduction to emotional intelligence. We also do a more extensive 5-session workshop that really helps people do, like I said, experiential learning, trying out new behaviors, including some assessment in emotional intelligence, and also be able to try out some new behaviors. But really, really effective stuff for all sorts of folks, but certainly we focus on religious leaders. And I can put our link in the chat for you. And is everybody else gone? I think everybody else has spoken, haven't you?
Except me.
Except you. I was wondering.
Yeah. But I have a question for you, David. Do you have few Presbyterians because we're already so emotionally intelligent, or because we aren't aware that we aren't emotionally intelligent?
I will tell you, actually, I think it has a lot to do with our polity. We end up doing a lot of sponsored workshops judicatories that say, hey, we'll make sure that we get some clergy and we'll sponsor it here in our neck of the woods, and we'll make sure we have some clergy there. And we just, in our tribe, presbyteries particularly don't have that kind of authority to say, Susie and Bill, you really should go to this event. And our COMs and presbytery execs, although some do, and actually we just got through doing a sponsored workshop with Baltimore Presbytery. So I'll retract my statement a little bit, and had a very successful experience with them. In fact, they helped do one of our first 5-session. It used to be week long, now it's really sort of 5-session core emotional intelligence workshops. Worked really well with them.
Do they offer anything that offers coach training, CCEUs?
No, we do not.
Might be interesting to expand into that since you're on the board.
Yeah, that would be interesting to think about how we could be a resource for coaches and offer some Con Ed. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, the resource that I brought, Mitch mentioned that in the church we have absolutely no conflict, and he's right on that. But I do want to say that until I got involved in coach training and further education, I spent more of my continuing ed dollars and time on conflict management and consulting than any other single topic. And I work a lot with that. And then I have also a certificate in organization and relationship systems coaching. So a lot of what I do relates to relationships and the snarls that we can get ourselves into. And what I've discovered is that people who try to repair a relationship after they've had a conflict is they go back and then they end up thinking they're making things better, but they end up relitigating whatever the issue was. Well, what I really meant was, and then they get back into it and things only get worse. And a tool that I have discovered, and this unfortunately lives in my computer, and we can't use MailChimp to send documents out. If anybody wants to see what I'm going to have, please email me, lornakalk@gmail.com, and I will send them to you. But it's validation, how to validate what someone else is saying. It's based on the work of Marsha Linehan, who works with borderline personality disorder people. And it's 6 ways to validate what's going on with another person. The interesting thing is people think, well, if I validate what you're saying, then I'm agreeing with you. And this makes very clear that's not the point. We're not agreeing. It's that I'm understanding who you are and what this is about. So validation communicates to this person that what you're thinking, feeling, or taking in actions that make sense are understandable to me. Even if I don't agree, my agreement's not important. It's what I see happening for you. What's been interesting, and I send this out to clients regularly, and I have not ever had anybody who doesn't come back saying, oh my gosh, do I wish I'd had this years ago. What's been interesting to me is in the last 6 months or so, I've discovered 2 forms of this in terms of self-validation, so that I'm able to say, oh, my feelings are valid here also. I can listen to myself and I can let go of, I shouldn't feel this way or think this way or whatever. And both of them are helpful. If any of you read Psychology Today, they had one in January, February on validation starts with you. And that's some of the same principles applied to the single person. But validation has been just really an important tool to help people get out of those snarls and help people put the focus back on relationship. And it is so theologically consistent for us who believe in incarnation, which is essentially a relational kind of thing. So I just love this tool. And I think we're all the way around. And I think, how are we doing on time, Peggy? I can't see my time.
We got about 4 more minutes.
Yeah. So anybody want to react or respond to what we've heard today? What you've heard today?
I have too many new books to read. It's just the list keeps getting
Yeah.
bigger. Now, this is great though. I enjoyed hearing everybody's part of the soup.
Do you think that this would be a valuable kind of thing to do maybe on an annual basis or an occasional basis? Or would this be better left to our third Thursday or fourth Thursday conversations? Anybody can unmute. Everybody unmute yourselves and let's just have a free for all for a few minutes.
I think this has been helpful in that I'm not able to participate in the smaller conversations. So the richness and the depth of resources, I think, is always helpful among coaches to see what else is out there and what else is working. So I would wholeheartedly validate what we've done today.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is always helpful because I'm always looking for new things. I so far I have been unable to make any of the Thursday other conversations just because of my schedule. So this has been good for me.
Last Thursday's comment, or the last time we met 2 weeks ago, Jason was very helpful to us in terms of talking about group and team coaching, which was a source of interest of everybody there. We do not record those conversations, and we won't, because that gives us a little bit of safety to say anything we feel like saying or be more personal than we might be in this call. But that led us to believe, well, we need to find somebody who will talk to us about group and team coaching, you know, and do an education event on that at some point. So we will do that. But you're all welcome to come to that. We'd love to have you. Anybody else have comments on today?
I personally believe that we should continue this on occasional basis because we change every day in a journey with the clients, and the clients are continually changing. So as part of that is to be creative. So just to share like we did today, I learned so much today from each and every one here, and I think it can be very, very useful for everybody to exchange resources.
Does anybody have things that you're particularly going to take away from today?
You're going to be getting an email from me about the validation.
Okay.
Stuff, I think.
Great. I'll be happy to share that. And we are working, by the way, on finding ways that we can better communicate with each other. We're looking at starting a site on Mighty Networks. And you'll be hearing more about that. And we're going to try and do better and more frequent communications about upcoming education events. We have Nydia coming on and going off with screen sharing, but
I don't know
who
what I'm
is
doing.
that man, Nydia?
Oh, that's my brother.
Ah, nice. Well, we're, I think we're close enough to the end of our time that we don't need.
May I ring a bell of something I encountered this week that's non-clergy, non-coaching related? If you are preparing for Transfiguration Sunday, one of our own was formative for me. Marion McKibben Dana wrote a piece in Feasting on the Word that may be helpful. It was definitely helpful to me in looking at the Second Kings passage from the lectionary. So look it up because she did a fantastic job, and I think she should be heralded for her good work in that publication of Feasting on the Word, Year B, Volume 1, in fact. So thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mitch. That's very kind. I've heard from another friend today who said, I saw you. You're helping me out. You're helping me out on Sunday.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and that you did.
thank you.